And if I now hand over to Joshua Herring for something slightly different. Josh, are you there?
I am here. Thank you, Richard, for having
Wonderful.
me.
So Joshua is the president and CEO of the Longevity Science Foundation. In the current university funding climate in the US, I think we really do need other sources of funding, and the LSF is a charity that Josh will be telling us about, and how they're getting involved in healthy brain aging research as well, both in the way of funding and also fundraising. So thank you very much for joining us, Josh. You could share your slides.
Thank you, Richard.
I'll hand
Actually,
over to you.
I'm not going to be using slides for this. I think
You're
it's
not
best
using
if we have
slides.
a
Okay.
face-to-face.
In that case, what I will do is to spotlight you. I hope this works. There we go.
Perfect.
Take it away. Thank you, Josh.
Absolutely. Thank you, Richard. I think we've heard a lot of really interesting things today. At the Longevity Science Foundation, who we are as an organization, if you're not familiar with us, we are a nonprofit 501c3 charity based in the United States that focuses on early stage longevity research. So what that really means for us is trying to get a good understanding of what research is both translational as well as biological, that will have an equity component to it that really drives health optimization for people, not just in the United States, not just the wealthy folks that exist in the United States, but all people in all geographies. We have a couple of different focuses, but one of them certainly is healthy brain aging. One of our main funding priorities is also looking at AI and how technologies can really increase the ability and availability of not only processing power, but information that we can discern in the time that it takes for us to do it. What I'd like to really talk about today are a couple of things. Certainly, as Richard mentioned, more than happy to opine on the funding environment in the US and some of the cuts that have been made, and the way that we're trying to step in there, but also to talk about how we're viewing AI at the Longevity Science Foundation. And I'll sort of do the latter first, and talk about the equity component there as well. So we're very bullish on it. We're very bullish on deep learning, machine learning, large language models. We think all of it has the ability to be extremely helpful. Some of it already has been extremely helpful. We all know that it can do a couple of great things. It can accelerate the identification of biomarkers used for neurodegenerative diseases, using multiomics. Machine learning can comb through large data sets and find irregularities in those large data sets from population health models like the UK Biobank, to help with predictive diagnostic tools and preventive medicine. Companies like In Silico Medicine already use it to simulate molecular interactions and significantly cut down on the time it takes to identify neuroprotective compounds and drugs. By the way, all of this significantly reduces R&D costs. If companies do things the right way, then that means that downstream pricing barriers should and could be reduced. So the point that we are really focusing on as an organization is AI and tech allow us to be more predictive, they allow us to be more preventive, and then allow us to not just lower costs for some people, but for all people. I love the topic of the presentation today in equity, because I think it's actually a really important one that we should talk about. Of course, the AI and the technologies and softwares are only going to be so good and useful as the data that they are trained on. So I think what we're really focusing on is understanding how to make sure that these models are equitable and fair and representative of the total global population, and really expand just beyond the West. I think what the UK has done with the biobank is an excellent example of what can be done in multiple different geographies, and using some of the tools that I mentioned earlier to really get in on a granular level and understand those things is an obvious application that I think could benefit billions and billions of people. In one of the earlier presentations, an excellent point was made that we make as well. The aging population is continuing to expand, and the more youthful population between 18 and 25 is not replacing that aging population nearly quickly enough. So we have an issue here that's not only a health challenge, but it's also an economic problem, an economic question as well, where the aging population is continuing to do so. They're continuing to, be marred by chronic and age-related disease, some related to the brain, some not. But we don't have the systems and infrastructure in place to help them as well as replace them as efficiently as we should. And that's why we're really focused on predictive medicine, preventive medicine, as well as the traditional sick care model that the US healthcare system operates inside. I think that we should think about AI, and at the foundation, we think about AI as a democratization tool, right? So it's not just about what can be innovated, but also who can innovate. How can we engage members from different geographies? So, for example, the UK-US bridge, it's extremely important. Richard and King's have been strong partners of ours since our inception, and we're looking to forge more academic partnerships with other researchers and institutions and even for-profits all around the world, right? So how can we not just innovate what is, the what, but the who? But again, on this point of ethics, I think it's imperative that we train AI on these diverse and representative data sets to eliminate bias and make them applicable to everyone. The largest risk that we see at the foundation is definitely an algorithmic one. If the AI models aren't being trained on equitable, fair, and balanced data, the results that we see won't be either. And I think that this question of addressing the aging population, both in the US and in the UK, but also around the globe, necessitates that fairness in the underlying models in order to be able to answer those questions and come up with solutions to the problems that we're being presented with today that are only worsening, which I think everyone alluded to earlier. So this sort of transitions into Richard's other point about the funding environment with NIH and the administration inside the US and what's happening right now. So the LSF is a grant-making entity, which means that we collect resources from our donors and we re-grant that money to the research projects that we do diligence on and think have a high likelihood of efficacy and accessibility for total global health solutions. A really good example of that relates to what we're talking about right now. We just announced that we're funding a project at the University of Copenhagen, led by Professor Morton, who I'm sure many of you are familiar with, that is specifically using AI and machine learning to find neuroprotective compounds, screen the brain, fight neurodegenerative diseases. So we're really at the nexus, I think, of AI and health research. And we have the ability and opportunity uniquely through our diligence process to really comb through and understand who else is standing at that nexus and how we can fund them. It's an intersection that I think we have to face and pay significant attention to. But I think it's one that is absolutely necessary, particularly in the current environment. Public research funding is the backbone of innovation. And I think that we all know that, especially for complex, long horizon challenges such as brain aging. Cuts to the NIH aren't just slowing science, they're also shrinking its scope, its diversity, and its ability to benefit all people. So that's where organizations such as ours and those in addition to ours can step in, not really to replace public funding, but to protect scientific progress, as well as political volatility, and make sure that we're continuing to innovate in the areas where we've already spent so many resources, but still need to continue the investment in those areas. So at the LSF, that's our focus. That's what we're doing and who we're trying to serve and how we're trying to do it. Welcoming any partnerships, any resources that are available, and hoping that we can offer ourselves as equal thought leaders and partners in that relationship as well. I think that we've got a really great opportunity right now to shift the focus and understand the opportunity ahead of us. If we stop funding research, we'll stop innovating. If we stop innovating, then more companies like the ones that we've talked about today won't get created. And if that happens, then we can't move forward either as countries, as a collective, or as a planet. We simply just won't move forward. And that is the focus on the research. That's the focus on the innovation. That's where it happens. And so, decisions to cut funding, they are what they are. We can't do anything about them. Certainly, I cannot. But what we certainly can do is be innovative and creative in finding ways to make sure that those gaps that have now presented themselves for one reason or another do get filled.
Josh, thank you so much for telling us about the work of the LSF. I think it is very important. And as you said, moving forwards as a planet, uh, hopefully a healthier planet that is the population and also the environment. Great. Well, thank you so much for the sharing about the good work you're doing, the fundraising, and also the funding of research projects with universities globally.